Greetings and salutations. This is Akirishin. In this video, I will be featuring the premium Caudron-Renault C.714 French fighter. This aircraft is currently being offered as a special kind of package deal by Wargaming, and so I thought you all might enjoy a review to help you decide, hey, is this a plane I want to get? So some of the basic features of the aircraft, it has a good airspeed, so not high airspeed, but good airspeed. It has a 6-second engine boost, good maneuverability. I'll tell you the aircraft feels nimble when you're flying it. It is a mid-altitude fighter, and it has machine gun armament. Looking at that, it has 4 7.5 millimeter machine guns that do 30 damage per second each. So that's, of course, not very high, but it does have a very high rate of fire, 1,450 rounds per minute. It also has an effective firing range of 440 meters. I can tell you that is one area where this aircraft suffers. You'll see many times in combat that enemy aircraft are just out of range. And so the 440 meter effective firing range is a little bit of a pain with this aircraft, so I do want to warn you about that. To accentuate this aircraft's airspeed, give it a little oomph, I did equip as an upgrade Engine Tuning 2, which increases engine power by 5%, and also Aircraft Polish 1, which increases top speed by 5%. Because it has good maneuverability, not high maneuverability, I did equip Lightweight Airframe 2, which increases maneuverability in all axes by 2%. I think you do need that. Ammunition-wise, I've gone with the universal ammunition, and given the rate of fire here, I'm sure that it has a lot more chance of fire, yes, twice the chance of fire as it does critical damage. And that's appropriate because, you know, these aren't large caliber guns, and so, you know, getting a fire on your target is useful given the huge rate of fire that the guns do have. That's the strength of the guns, is their high rate of fire. So that universal ammunition, I think, takes advantage of that. In terms of consumables, I went with automatic fire extinguisher and automatic engine restarter. The aircraft is said to have a vulnerable engine, so did choose that particular consumable for that reason. Also, I went with Control Surface Auto Trim, which automatically restores controllability of wings and tail if you get critical damage to those areas. Each one of these consumables, they're gold consumables, so they have a 60-second cooldown. They are activated automatically, so you don't have to think about it. You can concentrate on, flying your aircraft and situational awareness rather than having to activate them when needed, which is nice. The non-gold consumables for these have 90-second cooldowns, and they are activated manually. In terms of pilot skills, don't have a lot of skill points on my French pilots, so I was only able to get Engine Guru 1. If I could, I would certainly get Engine Guru 2, and then if I had points beyond that, I would go with Aerodynamics Expert, because it does improve our aircraft polish, our lightweight airframe, and our engine tuning. So it's a 3-for-1 improvement on those skills, those upgrades. Taking a look at the aircraft specifications, just get these expanded here for you. Optimum altitude is 1,200 meters, which is very much kind of low-mid altitude. I would say 1,800 meters would be kind of high-mid altitude, so 1,200's kind of down there. Optimum airspeed 297 kilometers per hour. Its stall speed is 120 kilometers per hour. It's not the best climbing aircraft. I would say that the engine just feels a little underwhelming, is the best way to describe it. Top speed at best altitude is 470 kilometers per hour. Average time to turn 360 degrees is 10 seconds. So certainly not the worst turning time, but not the best either. Looking at paint schemes. Now, one of the benefits of paint schemes is that, of course, if you choose the correct paint scheme for the correct conditions, you will get 10% increased concealment. You see that there? So you want to choose the summer paint scheme. If I were to choose one of these other paint schemes, which on most aircraft you can do, see here it says paint schemes purchased for one map type can be applied for other map types free of charge, and that's true. But what you need to know is that you won't get that 10% concealment unless you pick the summer paint schemes, which of course I've done here. So this is the summer paint scheme that you're looking at now. This is the winter paint scheme, desert paint scheme, and marine paint scheme. I would say probably my favorite is this marine paint scheme. I really like that. I think that looks pretty sharp on this aircraft. And if you wanted to go with some nose art, I don't have any on this aircraft. Didn't want to spend the money on it, but you could go with some attractive colors there that match the tail. Okay, so what we are going to do now is go to World of Warplanes website and use their Compare Aircraft tool to compare this premium Tier 4 fighter to other Tier 4 fighters, and hopefully that can help you decide, hey, do I want to get this aircraft? Do I want to take advantage of the bundle that Wargame is currently offering me, or are there a lot better fighters out there? Alright, so we are here on World of Warplanes website using their terrific Compare Aircraft tool, and I have selected the various Tier 4 fighters to compare against the C.714. So and as to each one of these fighters, I have made sure that they are fully upgraded in terms of their various different, improved hulls, improved guns, etc. That's all been upgraded to put each aircraft in its best light. So first up, we have, for comparison, the Nakajima Kai 43, and then we have the Ferry Fantôme. And looking at the gun armaments, basically these aircraft are similar. I don't think there's any significant advantage of one of these aircraft versus the C-14. None of these aircraft have bombs and rockets, so that's not an issue. In terms of survivability, the Chi-43 is somewhat less survivable in terms of its structurally speaking, than the C.714, whereas the Fantôme is slightly more survivable than the C.714. In terms of airspeed, surprisingly, the C.714 is better airspeed-wise than either the Chi-43 or the Fantôme. I say surprisingly because when I fly the C.714, it just doesn't feel like a very fast aircraft. Top speed at best altitude. Here the Chi-43 is slightly superior to the C.714, whereas the Fantôme is significantly inferior than the C.714. Maneuverability. Both the Chi-43 and the Fantôme are said to be more maneuverable than the C.714. And if you look at the average time to turn 360 degrees, you see that both the Chi-43 and the Fantôme are 2.5 seconds faster on the turn than the C.714s. In terms of optimum airspeed, the C.714 is superior to the Chi-43 and the Fantôme in that regard, fairly significantly so. Stall speed, and this is something that I've noticed with the C.714. It does tend to stall quickly, and you see there that both the Chi-43 and the Fantôme will stall significantly later than the C.714. Optimum altitude, the C.714 is superior in that regard to both the other two aircraft. Rate of climb, and this doesn't surprise me at all, and I think it kind of also goes along with the stall speed of the C.714. The C.714 has a slower climb rate than either the Chi-43 or the Fantôme. Alright, so we'll take these two aircraft off the list. And put their more detailed screens up there at the top in case we need to go to that. Next up we have the Bristol Type 146 and Mitsubishi A6M10. In terms of gun armaments, both the Bristol and the A6M1 are said to have superior gun armaments to the C.714. Okay, looking at the Bristol first. Now, the Bristol has 8 .303 Browning machine guns that do 25 damage each, with a rate of fire of 600 and an effective firing range of 440 meters. The machine guns, and there are 4 of these machine guns. The machine guns on the C.714 in comparison do 30 damage per second, which is slightly better than the machine guns on the Bristol. Also, the rate of fire on the C.714 is more than twice that of the rate of fire of the Bristol. the firing range is the same for the two aircraft, but the difference here is that the Bristol has 8 of these machine guns, whereas the C.714 only has 4 of them. So that is why the Bristol is indicated as being superior to the C.714. But having said that, I don't know that that's accurate, because if the Bristol has twice the number of machine guns, but half the rate of fire for each one of those machine guns, to me it would seem to kind of balance out. Looking at the A6M1, it has 2 7.7 millimeter machine guns, which do slightly less damage than those on the C.714, and have by about 650 lower rate of fire, same effective firing range. So, and there are only 2 of those. What the A6M1 has, though, that the C714 does not, are 2 20 millimeter cannons, which do 65 damage per second, a rate of fire of only 360 rounds, but more importantly also almost 200 meters longer on the firing range. The C714 suffers with only 440 meter firing range machine guns. That extra 200 meters in firing range on the Zero is useful for sure, and it has twice the damage per second on those cannons. So that is why the A6M1 is indicated as being superior in the comments. Looking at survivability and hit points, these aircraft are relatively the same in that category. The Zero slightly less, which is pretty typical for Japanese fighters. So I don't know that these aircraft have any major difference there. Top airspeed at best altitude, both the Bristol and the Zero slightly outpace the C714 in that regard. Average time to turn 360 degrees. The Bristol is almost 2 seconds, and the Zero is almost 2.5 seconds faster on the turn than the C714. And that can go to the issue of survivability. Survivability should not be all about hit points. It can also be about other factors. Stall speed, the Bristol and the C714 are the same, whereas the Zero will stall later than the C714. The C714 has the advantage by 200 meters on the Bristol and 600 meters on the Zero, which is pretty significant in terms of optimum altitude. Rate of climb, Bristol slower than the C714, the Zero faster. Of course, the Zero's optimum altitude is going to end prior to the C714. So the Zero can climb as fast as it wants to, but it's going to run out of rope. Alright, so let's take those two aircraft off. Moving on. We have a lot of Tier 4 fighters to go through. Okay, next up we have the Grumman XF4F3 and the Curtiss P-36C Hawk. In terms of gun armaments, these aircraft are basically the same. Survivability, the Grumman and the Curtiss have a slight advantage there. You just see they have slightly higher hit points. The two American aircraft also have the advantage in terms of top speed at best altitude by a pretty significant margin. 60 kilometers per hour for the Grumman and 40 kilometers per hour for the Curtiss. Average time to turn 360 degrees. The C.714 has the advantage there by about half a second. Probably not a huge difference, but in a turning fight, every half second counts. Stall speed, both of the American aircraft will stall sooner than the C.714. The C.714 has 200 meters in altitude over the Grumman. However, the Curtiss has 300 meters on the C.714. Rate of climb, both the American aircraft climb faster than the C.714. And we're moving right along here, folks. Alright, we have a P-36 Hawk, and we have a Curtiss Model 81A1. Armaments-wise, the Hawk is slightly superior to the C.714. The A1A1 slightly inferior in that regard. We'll just take a look at that as to why that might be. So the C.714 has 4 machine guns, whereas the A81A1 only has 2. However, the A81A1 machine guns do slightly better damage per second, but have a slower rate of fire, but slightly better effective firing range. The Grumman has 4 machine guns, basically 2 sets of the same as the 81A1, which we just talked about, but it also has 2 that do minorly more damage per second than the guns on the C.714, slightly less rounds per minute, however, and the same effective firing range. So again, these are, I don't think these are significant differences for these aircraft. All right, moving on. Looking at hit points, both the American aircraft have slightly higher hit points and are therefore said to be slightly superior in terms of survivability. Average time to turn 360 degrees, both the American aircraft are or a half-second slower. Stall speed, both the American aircraft will stall sooner than the C.714. Both the American aircraft have a fairly significant altitude advantage over the C.714, as well as they have a higher rate of climb than the C.714. All right, so now we have the Seversky 2PA and the Messerschmitt Bf-109B. The Seversky is said to be slightly inferior in terms of gun armament, whereas the Bf-109B is indicated to be somewhat superior than the C-714. We'll just take a look here real quick at the Bf-109, and we see the major difference there is that it does have two sets of machine guns which have similar stats to the machine guns of the C-714, but what the Bf-109B has that the C-714 does not is a 20 millimeter cannon, which does significantly more damage per second. So that would be the difference. All right. In terms of hit points, the Seversky has slightly higher hit points. The Messerschmitt Bf-109B has the same hit points as the C-714. Average time to turn 360 degrees is the same for all three of these aircraft. Stall speed, the Bf-109B will stall slightly sooner than the C-714, whereas the Seversky is the same as the C-714. And I say slightly sooner for the Bf-109B. Actually, it's pretty significant. It will stall 30 kilometers per hour sooner than the C-714, which is surprising given that, you know, the German aircraft tend to be higher altitude aircraft. You would think they would have a better stall speed. In terms of optimum altitude, the Seversky is 200 meters inferior to the C-714, whereas the Messerschmitt Bf-109B is 500 meters superior to the C-714, and that is consistent with the German aircraft typically being higher altitude aircraft. Now, the rate of climb for the Seversky and the C-714 are the same, and I think this may go to the earlier issue of the stall speed. While the Bf-109 does have a worse stall speed than the C-714, it has a better rate of climb, so that may help to ameliorate that issue. And finally, we have the Polikarpov I-17 Russian fighter. In terms of armament, the Russian aircraft is said to be slightly superior to that of the C-714. Let's see if we can tell why that is. And there it is. It has 4 machine guns like the C-714, but it has a 20 millimeter cannon, so that's precisely why it is said to be superior. In terms of hit points, the C-714 has higher hit points than the I-17. Average time to turn 360 degrees. The I-17, not surprisingly, has a better turn rate than the C.714. The Russian aircraft tend to have very good maneuverability. Stall speed. The I-17 will stall later than the C.714. However, the I-17 has a 600 meter disadvantage in terms of altitude as compared to the C-714, but the I-17 does have a better rate of climb. Alright, so hopefully that helps you put the C-714 in context with other Tier 4 fighters. So, having shown you my build for this aircraft, having gone over its specifications and paint schemes, and compared it to other Tier 4 fighters, let's head into a battle now and see how it actually performs. So we will be fighting in the peripheral mission, Snowy Shore, which is great. This is a map, actually, I tend to not get that often, so finish. I enjoy it when I do get it. And what we'll be doing is heading over to the garrison first, and then from there we will move on to the air base where I suspect the central fight will be. Sharp looking aircraft, has good lines.
Pilots, get ready for action. Let's go.
And we're just gonna tousle back and forth here, because when you do that, it does, I have found, decrease the amount of damage you take from the flak. You saw there those machine guns do eat into the target pretty well. And we're going to try to keep our altitude as much as possible, because I can tell you with this aircraft's speed and engines, it is hard to get back up there. Once you've lost altitude, it just is difficult to climb back up. Now this is where you will see the 400 plus firing range is just, it takes you a while to get into range to the target, and that is definitely a negative. A lot of aircraft we would be already shooting at this target here. But now, as you can see, once we get on the target, though, those machine guns do a good job. Alright, so we'll head on down here and take on some lower altitude targets. And you want to, the closer you are, the better with machine guns. They are less effective the further away you are. And I'm watching the mini-map. I do see some targets kind of moving in behind me. You want to always remember to watch that mini-map. And it's hard. It's probably one of the biggest things I struggle with is not getting tunnel vision. I get locked onto whatever my target is, and like a dog with a bone. I don't want to let go. But sometimes it's prudent to move on. So you see there, you know, that plane very quickly got out of our firing range. Definitely a negative with this aircraft. No doubt about it.
Stay alert, pilots. Large enemy force spotted over the airfield.
So yeah, you just see how quickly these guns really chew through things. You just gotta be close to them, really. Once you are, they do a good job. And you can see there, everything's still out of range. There we go. And I'll show you here how hard it is to climb. You can see we're already losing airspeed here pretty significantly. And we may stall before we're able to take this other aircraft out, which is always disappointing. There we go. And this target looks very close, but it is out of range. And that's at 440, I believe it was, meter firing range. That just is kind of painful. Out of range again. Okay. And we definitely don't want to be passing this Japanese fighter up. It is certainly more maneuverable than we are. And so, you know, once again, we're waiting for the enemy aircraft to come in range of us, and you'll see how quickly here it gets out of range. It's got any kind of speed. They've lost some energy trying to climb. Okay, we got the Guardian accolade there. That's nice. Got a human fighter pilot over here, so try to get him taken out. Always target your human pilots first. They are going to be most effective against your team, especially when they're in a Japanese fighter.
There's a heavy storm here. Unable to proceed. Return into base. Do you copy?
It feels very nimble. It's nice to fly. I would just say the two things I wish were a little better is maybe a little bit more airspeed and longer range machine guns. Those are the two weaknesses, I would say, that would be on my wish list for this aircraft to be a little bit better, but still, I enjoy flying it. Around here, got a heavy fighter here. You see, I can't really catch up to him, and we need this fighter to come down to us.
Victory is in sight. Keep it up.
Out of range. Okay. Looks like they only have 3 enemy aircraft alive. Let's head over here to the garrison and see if we can't take it from them.
Keep it up, pilot. You can do it. The enemy is almost defeated. Make a fight.
There we go. All right, folks. So, pretty good result there. Victory, yay. Flying start, supporting fire, effective fire, strong support, subjugator, hunt for hawk, flying guardian badge, Akamatsu medal. Ran out of time there. Alright, let's see here. Finishing up with our medals. We've got Winged Legend. And let's see, Guardian. So, we destroyed 13 aerial targets. Did over 2,400 damage in aerial targets. Destroyed 9 of those while defending. Captured 2 sectors. Also had 8 assist points. And over 15,000 in combat points. So I think you can really see the strength of this aircraft. Did a good job there. All right, so let's head into another here. All right, so we will be fighting on the Scorching Sands leading edge map. And we will head over to one of the forward airstrips first. Let's see which side so we'll be heading over to this forward airstrip. And then no doubt the battle will probably be over the plant.
Cover your allies. Hit the enemy. And we
Looks like
shall
we
win.
have several human pilots. Which is not unusual at this level. Tend to get a lot more human pilots at the lower levels.
Pilots, get ready for action. Let's go.
You know, it actually feels like this airfield over to our northeast is closer. So we'll head there first and then we'll go to the plant. On the map it kind of looked like maybe the southwest airfield was closer, but don't think so. Alrighty. Looked like that fighter was just sitting there, didn't it?
We've taken over the forward airfield. Nice work.
Looks like we have a enemy fighter that decided to come our way. And we also have a bomber up here. Okay. And we'll just let our guns cool down for just a second. See, is he gonna come around? Yeah, he's coming around here. And we may have to dive to avoid his guns, but then he turned so we don't have to. That's a mistake, he probably should have taken us out. And I'd love to finish him off, but I'm taking fire myself here. Come on, almost got him. So close. Oh, jeez. There we go. That ought to do it. Whew. Alright, let's see where the fight is. Fairly predictable. It's over the plant there, center. So we will head over there and get into it. And we have a 6-second boost on this aircraft. This aircraft feels very maneuverable. And we'll just do a little loop here so that we stay behind this guy. And looks like we got the aircraft that had shot us down last time, so that was nice. We got the Avenger accolade there. Achievement. Yeah, right now we're just kind of suffering from loss of energy. Alright, so taking fire here, we'll just flip around. The closer you are, the more effective these machine guns are going to be. And we've got an enemy on our tail, so we'll move to avoid that.
Step it up. We're losing the battle.
I don't know if we can get over here and help our
The enemy is concentrating forces
friendly out.
on the field.
It's got an enemy on its tail. There we go. Got him.
Hang in there. You'll soon be covered.
And hopefully we'll be able to finish this guy off before we stall. Or he'll drop down to our level here, which would be nice. There we go. Should be able to finish him off here. And I see watching the mini-map there, see a plane working on our tail, so always keep track of the mini-map. That's one thing, you know, as a pilot I struggle with, is keeping an eye on that mini-map. Very important, not getting tunnel vision.
We cannot support you any longer. The storm is too heavy. Do you copy? Over.
Okay, so unfortunately a defeat, but I think this aircraft performed pretty well. Did tend to suffer from energy loss. I got the _1 spot there on the team. And we'll head back to the hangar here and take a look at the after action report. And some of the energy issues, I'm sure some of it is how I was flying it, but it's also, you know, it has good airspeed. It does not have high airspeed. Alright, so 10 aerial targets destroyed, 5 while defending. Let's see here, over 1,500 in damage to aerial targets. Captured 1 sector, but we kind of stayed over the airfield over there because the battle was just raging over there for almost the entire sortie. So we didn't have to go far to have the fight. And over 9,000 in combat points. And let's see. All told, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 human pilots on each team. Alright, so that is the Caudron C.714 French fighter. Not a bad aircraft. It could be a little bit better in the airspeed department. But I think if I had maybe Engine Guru 2, that could possibly help with that. give it a little bit more oomph for climb and such. It felt very nimble and responsive. Not a bad aircraft at all. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you decide to fly the C.714, I think that you'll see success in it.